You simply don't fit in here, the flight attendant declared, demanding the black teen abandon the first-class seat he'd saved for weeks to buy. She saw an easy target to intimidate a kid she could push to the back of the plane. What she didn't see was the phone in his hand dialing. She was oblivious that the boy's father was a man with the airline CEO's personal number. As she threatened to call security, she had no idea the call he was making would ground the entire aircraft and end her career. He was just a young soul, only 17, embarking on a journey all by himself for the very first time. He had always dreamed of sitting in first class. After countless weeks of scrimping and saving every last penny, he had finally achieved the long-awaited upgrade. His heart pounded with excitement as he sank into the luxurious seat, feeling as though he had reached the pinnacle of bliss. For the first time, he felt a profound sense of belonging. No longer just a faceless passenger lost in the crowd. He felt a surge of uniqueness, but the warmth of his pride would soon fade away. A flight attendant came over her smile, warm on the surface, but lacking the spark of genuine warmth in her eyes. She cast a fleeting look at the teen's boarding pass, then raised her gaze to him, her eyes narrowing just a touch filled with a hint of scrutiny. "Excuse me, young man," she said, her voice carrying a mix of politeness and a sharp undertone. "You shouldn't be here." A wave of confusion washed over him as he glanced around the cabin, noticing the other first-class passengers. Their faces turned away, lost in their own worlds, completely oblivious to the moment unfolding before him. "I've got the upgrade," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of excitement and anxiety. "This seat was bought with my hard-earned money." Her smile faded away, replaced by a look of surprise as her eyebrows shot up. "This seat is reserved for those who have paid, and you simply don't fit in here." He stood completely still, as if time itself had come to a halt. Could she really be serious? This just can't be real. "Could you please clarify what you mean?" he inquired, his voice carrying a newfound strength. "I finally received the upgrade I've been longing for. I hold a ticket just like everyone else, feeling the weight of anticipation and hope that comes with it." The flight attendant took a moment before responding. Instead, she sought the eyes of the other flight attendants, sharing a meaningful glance filled with unspoken understanding. After a brief pause, she lifted her eyes back to him, a world of emotions swirling within her. "I'm really sorry, but I must kindly request that you move, sir. The economy class is filled with an abundance of vacant seats, a stark reminder of the journeys not taken." A fierce rhythm surged within his chest, each beat echoing the intensity of his emotions. It was as if every gaze was fixed upon him, yet silence hung in the air, heavy and unbroken. He looked around, the gravity of the moment pressing down on him, his hands tightly balled into fists. He felt lost, uncertain of the path ahead. This felt like a haunting nightmare. Yet what unfolded next would reveal the depths of his courage and the lengths he was prepared to reach in defense of what he believed to be just. "Why?" he questioned, his voice quaking with a swirl of confusion and fury. "Why am I being asked to leave when I have a valid ticket for this seat?" The flight attendant inhaled deeply, her heart heavy with the weight of the situation. "I just can't explain right now," she said, her voice sharp and filled with urgency. "I'm simply fulfilling my responsibilities." In that moment, the teen's frustration surged to an unbearable peak. Yet as he began to voice his thoughts, a profound realization stirred within him. He couldn't simply walk away from this. He had a glimmer of hope, knowing there was someone out there who could mend this. A person with the power to make the airline truly hear us. A person who was determined to stand their ground. In a heartbeat, he reached for his phone, his fingers dancing over the familiar numbers, and held his breath as he waited for the call to connect. Initially, the flight attendant was oblivious. But as the teen's voice filled the air through the phone, a palpable change washed over her, revealing a deeper awareness. She cast a fleeting look in his direction, a quiet storm of emotions brewing in her gaze. Yet he remained indifferent. It's over now. He had taken that brave step to make the call. The wheels were set in motion, a powerful force driving us forward. This is just the start of something incredible. And before long, the world would come to realize the profound consequences of underestimating the impact of a single phone call. The teen's fingers clutched the phone with a fierce intensity as it rang, his heart pounding wildly with a mix of excitement and anxiety. He sensed the weight of the flight attendant's gaze upon him, her posture tightening with an unmistakable intensity. Yet there was no way to go back. He had taken the leap and made the call, and now he was left with a fragile hope that the voice on the other end would deliver what he so desperately needed. As the phone rang, a wave of memories washed over him. Each one a reminder of the journey that had brought him to this moment. The endless hours of toil, the heartfelt sacrifices, the cherished dreams of soaring in first class. This moment felt like the painful culmination of everything that had come before, stripped down to its most humiliating essence. It had transformed into something far more significant than merely a seat. It was deeply rooted in the essence of respect, in the unwavering pursuit of fairness. The phone clicked and a rich, resonant voice filled the air. Absolutely! It cut through the air, unyielding and straightforward. The voice of someone who had no patience for idle chatter. Mr. Carter! The teen said, his voice trembling as he fought to maintain his composure. It's truly me. I'm currently on a flight and I truly need your assistance. A moment of silence hung in the air before the voice on the other end finally broke through. What's happening right now? I'm being kicked out of first class. The teen said, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of disbelief. I invested in this seat, but the flight attendant, she's telling me that I don't have a place here. Please, I really need your help to make this right. On the other end, Mr. Carter paused, enveloped in a heavy silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Then he spoke, his voice steady and resolute. Where are you headed on your journey? So which airline are we talking about? The teenager hurriedly shared the details, his anxiety escalating with each passing second. He was overwhelmed with disbelief that this was actually unfolding before him, his deepest fears coming to life before his very eyes. He reached out to someone he deeply trusted. But would they arrive in time to make a difference? Could they truly have an impact? Mr. Carter's voice pierced the heavy silence, shattering the tension that hung in the air. Your decision to reach out to me was truly the right one. Maintain your composure. I promise to handle this with all my heart. Hold onto your phone tightly and stand your ground. Don't let them intimidate you. I will make sure they hear me. Just as the teenager was about to reply, the connection abruptly cut off, leaving a heavy silence in the air. The call had come to a close. The teenager stared at his phone, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, torn between a sense of relief and a deepening worry. The gravity of the situation crashed down on him with an overwhelming force. He was placing his trust in someone with the right connections, someone who could truly make things happen. But could it really work? Was it truly possible for him to make the airline hear his plea? When the flight attendant approached his row again, her icy stare cutting deeper than before, he rose to his feet, bracing himself to stand his ground. He was resolute, refusing to yield. Please, not at this moment. Not after all that he had endured. Just as he was on the brink of sharing his thoughts, his phone buzzed once more, interrupting the moment. He hurriedly glanced at the screen, his heart racing with anticipation. A heartfelt message awaits. It came from Mr. Carter. I've taken the first steps and reached out to some people. Just hang in there. That was everything it needed. The teen experienced a powerful wave of confidence enveloping him. Mr. Carter possessed an extraordinary ability to bring dreams to life. The battle was far from finished. The flight attendant stood there, her patience wearing thin, a look of clear frustration etched on her face. Well, she inquired, her voice tinged with frustration. Are you planning to move, or should I call security? He glanced up at her, his face now a picture of calmness. Absolutely not. I'm staying right here, he declared with unwavering conviction. I stand firm in my innocence, and I have someone ready to address this matter with your management. If you wish to carry on with this, don't hesitate to reach out to them, but I'll be right here, standing my ground. The flight attendant's eyes narrowed, revealing a moment of doubt that danced across her face. She had grown accustomed to passengers crumbling under pressure, never daring to confront her. Yet this moment felt unlike any other. She cast another look around the cabin, her mind racing with the weight of the decision before her, pondering if it was truly worth taking things to the next level. The teenager stood firm, unwavering in his resolve. His phone vibrated once more, and he stole a quick look at the screen, a flutter of anticipation rising within him. Yet another message from Mr. Blake. "My heart stirs at the thought of you. It's finished. They're taking you away from the plane." The teenager's heart raced with anticipation. He was utterly astonished. Before he could fully grasp the whirlwind of events unfolding around him, the flight attendant abruptly pivoted, striding purposefully down the aisle. Just moments later, another staff member rushed in, their voice filled with urgency as they spoke to her. It was evident that they were gearing up for something significant. Yet he remained in the dark about just how far this would unfold. In an instant, almost dreamlike, the plane gave a sudden jolt. Suddenly, the seatbelt sign illuminated, and a voice echoed through the cabin, capturing everyone's attention. "We've encountered a small technical hiccup, and we'll be heading back to the gate." The teen felt a heavy weight in their chest. What just transpired? The flight attendants hurried down the aisles, their expressions etched with worry as they ensured everyone was safely seated. The teenager sat there, a whirlwind of confusion swirling within him, grappling with the uncertainty of the moment that was unfolding around him. Yet deep down, he held on to one undeniable truth. It had become so much more than merely being removed from first class. This meant so much more than that. As the plane slowly glided back to the gate, the teen was enveloped by an unexpected wave of satisfaction. He had summoned the courage to make the call, firmly standing his ground. And no matter what unfolded next, he felt a deep conviction that he would not be the one to retreat. The wheels met the tarmac with a heavy thud, signaling the plane's bittersweet return to the gate. A wave of unease swept through the cabin as passengers shifted nervously in their seats, exchanging hushed whispers, desperately trying to understand why the flight that had just begun its journey was now inexplicably returning to where it all began. The absence of answers hung heavy in the air, casting a shadow of unease that spread like wildfire through the cabin. The teenager remained motionless, clutching his phone, his gaze fixed ahead. He sensed the heavy burden of the stares and unspoken chorus of questions that enveloped him in their quiet presence. Yet he chose not to glance back. He felt no obligation to justify himself to anyone. Not just yet. He pored over the message once more, his heart heavy with each word. "It's finished. They're taking you away from the plane." It was surreal, but as the front cabin door swung open and the sound of footsteps drew near, the weight of reality crashed down upon me swiftly. Two men sharply dressed in suits entered the aircraft with an air of purpose. They were not dressed in the familiar airline uniforms. They were so much more than just flight attendants. These were part of the corporate world, those rare individuals who only step onto a plane when something truly significant is unfolding. The lead man leaned in close and shared a hushed secret with the cabin crew. All eyes were drawn, faces transformed. One of the attendants, who had maintained her distance during the earlier confrontation, now approached the teen's row with urgency. This time, she remained silent, pausing beside him, her uncertainty palpable as she grappled with the weight of what was about to unfold. And then a voice emerged, steady, resolute, and unwavering. "Sir," the man in the suit said, his voice steady yet filled with a hint of urgency as he turned to the teen. "Would you please join us?" The teen looked up, a flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. "Am I facing consequences?" The man slowly shook his head, a deep sense of disappointment washing over him. "Absolutely not, sir. Everything is going to be okay. You have nothing to worry about. We really need to talk to you away from the plane." With a heavy heart, he rose, slowly filled with uncertainty about what awaited him beyond the cabin doors. Yet, as he crossed into the jet bridge, the truth began to sink in more profoundly. Two more elegantly dressed individuals stood patiently accompanied by a woman clutching a tablet. She exuded an air of authority, perhaps a supervisor or manager from the airline staff. Her expression held no hostility, yet it lacked warmth as well. She appeared to be a fragile soul in SNS, snared in a whirlwind far beyond her readiness to face. The woman bravely stepped forward. "My name is Karen Mitchell, and I proudly serve as the Senior Flight Operations Manager for the airline. Could we take a moment to talk? It's important to me." He gave a small, thoughtful nod. "We regret to inform you that there has been an incident concerning one of our crew members in your designated seat. Is that really true?" "Indeed," he responded. "I found myself nestled in the luxurious embrace of first class. I held a confirmed ticket, yet I was told I didn't have a place there." Her gaze was unwavering, locked onto his with an intensity that spoke volumes. "So, did you reach out to someone beyond the airline?" "I truly did." With a gentle tap on the tablet, she paused to take a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "The individual you reached out to has connected with our executive team. That call reached the very heart of our CEO's office." The teenager blinked, a moment of surprise flickering in their eyes. He had always sensed that Mr. Carter was capable of manipulation, but this sudden surge of intensity was far beyond what he had ever imagined. Dinah continued, "I want to express how deeply we care about this. We are committed to addressing these issues with the utmost seriousness. If you have experienced mistreatment or discrimination, please know that we will thoroughly investigate your concerns. But for now, we must come together and decide if this flight will proceed as intended." He furrowed his brow, questioning himself. "Is this my fault?" "No," she reassured him. "It's about all of us. You haven't done anything wrong. Yet when circumstances like this arise and corporate steps in during the flight, we have to follow our protocol. That means we must halt everything until we fully grasp the situation." He cast a longing glance back at the cabin, his heart sinking as the plane remained still. Passengers sat in their seats, likely filled with confusion and impatience over the unexpected delay. The silence that enveloped the scene was deafening, echoing his unease. Donna, with a furrowed brow, glanced at her tablet once more. The flight was on hold, suspended in uncertainty. For now, it was grounded, leaving a heavy weight in the air. The word grounded struck him like a thunderclap. He was taken aback. Yes, he had yearned for accountability, but halting an entire flight. This was beyond anything he had imagined. "I didn't want this to happen," he confessed. "I just wanted to keep the seat I paid for." She nodded slowly, her expression heavy with understanding. "And that's exactly the point," she replied. "You shouldn't have had to fight for it. We will uncover the reasons behind this, and those who need to know will be informed." A heavy silence fell over the room as everyone absorbed the gravity of the situation. Then one of the men in suits moved closer. "Can you spare a few moments? Someone wishes to speak with you privately." The teen nodded, still in disbelief, and trailed behind them through the terminal. With each step, the reality of the situation became increasingly surreal. Just an hour ago, he was an ordinary passenger, and now he found himself at the heart of a corporate crisis. They arrived at a lounge, a serene space concealed behind frosted glass doors. One of the men opened the door and motioned for him to enter. There, at a modest table, sat a man clad in a dark blazer, his voice a soft murmur as he spoke into his phone. As the teen stepped inside, their eyes met, and he offered a subtle nod before concluding his call. "I'm Michael Reed." He introduced himself, his tone steady yet warm. "I work directly with the airline's Executive Affairs Division." The teen settled into a chair, anxiety creeping in. "Am I in trouble?" Clay shook his head, feeling a wave of frustration. "It's just a number, but the airline is." He took a moment, gathering his thoughts before pressing on. "Mr. Carter reached out to our CEO directly, not through the usual channels of customer service or press releases. He dialed the personal line." The teen's eyebrow arched in surprise. "That's a rare occurrence," Clay remarked, his tone heavy with implication. And when it happens, it signifies a serious misstep. He opened a folder and gently pushed a printed document across the table. Here's your seat confirmation, and I assure you, you are definitely assigned to 3A. There's no error here. It's paid, verified, and logged. The teen nodded, a flicker of relief in their eyes. I knew it. I presented my ticket to the flight attendant, but she refused to acknowledge it. Clay leaned back, a sense of frustration creeping in. That's where this turns into a real issue. It's not merely a seat mix-up. It's about the judgment that comes with it. The weight of the assumption lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. Clay spoke with caution, his words carefully chosen. I'm not ready to say anything publicly at this moment, he began. But I must share this. You are not the first to voice concerns about that specific crew member. There seems to be a troubling pattern. The teen's heart raced, a surge of anxiety coursing through them. It was never just about him. Clay stood tall, determination in his eyes. We're going to make this right. You will be rebooked and upgraded once more on a different flight. We'll take care of everything. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. But I need you to understand, you've just made a difference. People are paying attention to this case. The teen rose slowly, still grappling with the enormity of it all. What about the flight I was on? Are they still grounded? Clay nodded. Until further notice, the crew is being replaced and a formal inquiry starts today. The teen's expression remained somber. Not yet, but for the first time since that moment in the sky, a flicker of strength ignited within him. He no longer felt powerless. This battle was far from over. Not even close. As the teen emerged from the executive lounge, an electric hum trailed behind him. Airport staff with earpieces murmured urgent updates. A supervisor hurriedly navigated the terminal. A duo of security personnel guided bewildered passengers who had been set for the now cancelled flight. He never intended to draw attention, yet somehow he had become the center of it all. In silence, he transformed a fleeting moment of disregard into a powerful surge of upheaval that rippled through the corridors of a multi-billion-dollar airline. His phone buzzed once more. Handled. We'll talk more when you land. Proud of you. Those words carried a weight beyond expression, filling him with a renewed sense of purpose that propelled him forward, free from doubt. As he approached the check-in counters, an agent with a serene, composed expression welcomed him. Sir, we've arranged a direct flight for you in just 2 hours. First-class seat 1A. You'll have a pre-boarding escort. With that, she gestured for him to follow her to the private lounge. There was no chaos, no pushback, just a seamless professional experience that felt almost too perfect. It felt as if they were wishing for him to fade away from the spotlight, to vanish without causing any more waves. But he had made up his mind. He wouldn't vanish. Not this time. As he nestled into the serene lounge, his gaze fixed on the planes gliding along the runway through the expansive glass windows, a profound change stirred within him. He hadn't sought to be involved in any of this. Yet here he was, entangled in it all, whether he liked it or not. Just moments later, the door slowly creaked open. A woman clad in a sleek black blazer entered, holding a tablet and an envelope. She took a seat across from him, her demeanor serious and direct, skipping any pretense of small talk. My name is Emily Harper. She introduced herself, her voice steady. I'm part of the legal and compliance division of the airline. You're not required to speak with me, but I would deeply appreciate it if you could share your statement now on the record. He raised an eyebrow, curiosity flickering in his gaze. A statement? Yes, she confirmed, her voice steady yet gentle. We're embarking on a formal review of the incident. Your words could shed light on internal records and the crew's actions. Remember, you're not obligated to answer any questions that make you uneasy. He nodded slowly, a mix of resignation and acceptance washing over him. All right. She pressed record and set the tablet on the table between them, the weight of the moment palpable in the air. Please state your name for the record. He complied. Can you recount the events from the moment you stepped onto the plane? And so, for the first time, he unveiled the entire tale, how he had presented his boarding pass, how the flight attendant had scarcely acknowledged it, how she had informed him that the seat was unavailable, and how her demeanor changed when he stood firm. It was as if she questioned his presence there simply because he didn't fit the image of the typical first-class passenger she was accustomed to. Lauren listened intently, not interrupting. She merely sought clarity through her questions. Once he concluded, she extended her hand toward the envelope. "We're reviewing in-flight recordings as part of our investigation." She explained, her voice steady yet compassionate. "We're also collecting witness statements from passengers who might have overheard the interaction." He glanced at the envelope, a mix of confusion and curiosity in his eyes. "What's that?" he asked. "This is a formal apology from the airline signed by the Vice President of Customer Relations." She replied, her tone conveying the weight of the moment. "Inside there's a voucher and a heartfelt letter explaining that we're looking into the matter. You can choose to read it now or save it for later. The decision is yours." He accepted the envelope but left it unopened. Lauren rose to her feet. "Someone will reach out in the next few days. I understand this isn't what you anticipated from what should have been a straightforward flight." "No," he replied. "It certainly wasn't." She hesitated for a moment before stepping away. "Understand that this truly matters. The courage you showed in standing up for yourself is already making waves reaching far beyond the confines of the company. The whispers are spreading." He leaned back in his chair after she departed, his hands gently cradling the envelope. He hadn't dared to open it yet, and truthfully, the letter itself wasn't the crux of the matter. It was about a seat, an upgrade, a heartfelt apology. None of those reasons could explain why he remained in this place. Because lurking behind every apology was a relentless system, a system that formed judgments about you before you even had the chance to speak, leaving the apology to arrive only after the hurt had already settled in. His phone buzzed once more. "The story is spreading. Take a look at the link I sent." He clicked on it and it opened to a trending post from a popular travel influencer showcasing a brief video someone had recorded inside the plane. Though the words were muffled, the image was striking. The flight attendant looming over his seat, arms crossed, casting a disapproving gaze. The unspoken tension was palpable. The comments flooded in a mix of disbelief and outrage. How can this still be happening? Kudos to him for standing his ground. Airlines must rise to the occasion. A few swipes later, and a news outlet had caught wind of the story, amplifying the outrage. And just like that, it was no longer just his flight. It was a collective experience. Another message arrived, sending a chill down his spine. "Heads up. She's been taken off active duty. A temporary suspension. An internal review is in progress." His fingers lingered over the screen, caught in a moment of contemplation. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about satisfaction. It was about accountability. The distinction between the two weighed heavily, especially in this moment. Across the terminal, the call for a new flight rang out, a promise of freedom and escape. This time, there would be no scrutiny, no additional hurdles, no doubt cast upon his rightful place in that seat he had fought for. Yet, as he strode through the priority lane toward the gate, a haunting thought reverberated in his mind. How many others had chosen silence over their truth? How many had retreated to the back of the plane, or even stepped off entirely just to sidestep confrontation? And how many times had their struggles gone unnoticed, lost in the noise of indifference? This moment felt unlike any other. Eyes were on him, and he still had more to give. As the wheels finally soared off the runway, the narrative had already outpaced the terminal, leaving everything behind. His phone remained in airplane mode, yet the gravity of the events unfolding beyond that cabin enveloped him. He found himself alone in his seat. Seat 1A felt like it was wrapped in an invisible barrier. Yet even in the stillness, he sensed the occasional gaze from fellow travelers. It wasn't intrusive or mocking. It was simply a shared awareness. The captain's welcome announcement was devoid of anything unusual. There were no mentions of past delays, No whispers of the unsettling reality that had just forced this airline to ground an entire flight mere hours ago. He leaned back, his gaze fixed on the ceiling of the jet. The soft hum of the engines tried to drown out the turmoil brewing behind his eyes. This was far more than a mere upgrade or a seat. It was about that heart-wrenching moment when someone looked at him, not at his ticket, not at his status, not even at his actions, but at him, and in that silent exchange made a decision that pierced him to the core. He simply didn't belong. As the plane touched down, he powered his phone back on, and a flood of notifications surged in each one more intense than the last. His friend's group chat was exploding with excitement. "Bro, you're literally on the news. Check CNN's feed. You're the talk of the town." The world was buzzing, and he was at the heart of it all. With a racing heart, he clicked on the news article. It was real now. It was official. The headline proclaimed, "Teen asserts he was ousted from his first-class seat due to his appearance. The airline has grounded the flight for an investigation, leaving passengers in a state of uncertainty." Beneath this, a subheading revealed the troubling video footage that has been making its rounds online. The delay has left many anxious, and an apology was issued mid-air at the airport, but it feels insufficient. Legal representatives from the airline have already confirmed that an internal review is underway, adding to the weight of the situation. Just a few hours had passed, yet everything was already set in motion. Then the messages arrive from unfamiliar numbers. "This is Diana from Morning Wave. We would be honored to share your voice on the record. National talk shows are eager for interviews. We want to provide you with a platform to express your truth. No editing, no spin." He set the phone down, feeling the weight of it all. Just a day ago, he was merely a solitary teen on a journey. Yet now, it felt as if the world was clamoring for his narrative. But that phrase haunted him, his narrative. There was no narrative. There was only the reality of what transpired and the uncomfortable truth that so many were unwilling to confront. A truth that continued to unfold every day. After retrieving his bag, he encountered a man in a crisp grey suit waiting for him by the exit. There was no warm greeting, no friendly smile, only a clipboard and a name badge that revealed him as a senior representative for the airline, the very same company that had attempted to dismiss him earlier that morning. "We've arranged private transportation for you," the man stated flatly. "And a formal letter will be delivered to your address. Once more, we extend our heartfelt apologies on behalf of the company." He accepted the ride, but the silence weighed heavily. Inside the car, he finally unfolded the envelope from earlier. The letter, though polished in its corporate tone, conveyed a deep sense of regret. It recognized the failure in service protocol and touched upon a promise to uphold values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It said nothing about bias, nothing about judgment. It skirted around the issue as if it were terrified to confront it. Then a line at the bottom caught his attention. "We will use this moment as an opportunity to retrain and educate our crew on the values we stand for." He folded the letter, feeling a deep sense of frustration. This wasn't merely about values written on paper. It was about that crucial moment when someone had the chance to do the right thing and chose not to. Just 2 days later, he reluctantly consented to a single interview. It wasn't about seeking fame or chasing clout. It was about reclaiming his narrative. If his name was to be linked to this pivotal moment, it would be on his own terms. The interviewer seated across from him in a modest, pristine studio exuded a gentle respect as she posed her thoughtful questions. When she inquired about his decision to remain seated when she requested he move, he responded without a moment's pause. "Because I paid for that seat. Because I had every right to be there. If I let it go, I would be admitting that her assumption was right, that I didn't belong." She nodded. "Did you ever imagine it would reach this point? I wasn't aiming for fame," he said. "I just stood my ground." She paused, her gaze dropping to her notes. So many teens have faced these silent struggles, moments that often go unnoticed and unspoken. What message do you hope they carry with them? For the first time in the interview, he locked eyes with the camera, his sincerity palpable. "You don't need to raise your voice to make an impact. Anger isn't a prerequisite for truth. What truly matters is understanding your own identity and refusing to let the unease of others shake your sense of self. The interview aired that evening, and within mere hours, it captivated millions. The flood of comments was overwhelming. "This kid is incredible. He navigated it with a poise that many adults could only dream of." That final remark struck a deep chord. As the video soared in popularity, something profound unfolded in the background. Others began to open up, sharing their own stories, videos, tweets, and photos, not just related to this airline, but resonating across various industries. There were moments when they felt the weight of different words, the sting of different treatment, the ache of being overlooked, the burden of doubt. A tide had begun to rise, and it showed no signs of retreating. Later that night, another message pierced through the silence. An internal memo had just been leaked. The employment of the flight attendants was now under final scrutiny. Policy changes were already being drafted. Yet the teen chose silence. He refrained from sharing his experience on another platform. He didn't feel the need to, for the narrative had evolved beyond his individual struggle. It transformed into a reflection, compelling countless others to confront their own truths. This time, there was no turning away. The tempest raged on, growing fiercer as more voices emerged, each one adding to the weight of the collective experience. In a world where he never sought the spotlight, the teen's quiet defiance sparked a powerful dialogue that refused to be silenced by mere apologies or corporate statements. His name echoed through social media, podcasts, and news panels, becoming a beacon of resilience and calm resistance. Even those unfamiliar with the entire story found inspiration in his name, recognizing it as a symbol of courage in the face of a system that often demands loud protest to be heard. Yet amidst the chaos of the headlines, he found himself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions in real time. He was still navigating the halls of school, juggling homework, friendships, and the unsettling change in how those around him perceived him. Some regarded him with awe, as if he were a celebrity, while others walked on eggshells, hesitant and unsure of how to approach him. One afternoon, a teacher gently took him aside after class, sensing the weight he carried. "I just wanted to express how much I admired your interview. The way you carried yourself was truly remarkable. It showed such incredible strength." He nodded, a hint of gratitude in his eyes. "Thanks. Have you ever contemplated what you want to do with all of this?" He shrugged, a sense of uncertainty lingering. "I didn't plan any of it." The teacher smiled warmly. "Sometimes the most beautiful moments in life are the ones we never see coming." That night, he finally opened a message that had been waiting unread for hours. A mix of anticipation and hesitation swirling within him. It came from the airline's new PR director. The tone was different, the energy palpable. They acknowledged that previous communications may not have resonated as intended. They extended an invitation for you to join a round discussion with airline leadership. No cameras, just an open dialogue. Your experiences hold the power to influence the future of our passenger policies. He read it twice, letting the weight of the message sink in. He wasn't foolish. He understood the weight of being welcomed into a space like that. Some might dismiss it as a mere publicity stunt, a tactic to manage the repercussions. But what if it represented something deeper? A genuine opportunity to prevent others from enduring the pain he faced. The meeting took place the very next week. It wasn't said in an opulent boardroom or embellished with the presence of journalists. It was just a simple conference room featuring a long table and a handful of executives. Yet the air was thick with unspoken tension. He spoke with clarity, not with anger, but with a raw honesty that cut through the silence. "I didn't create a spectacle. I didn't lash out. I occupied a seat I had paid for, and somehow that was enough to warrant scrutiny." One of the executives nodded slowly, a sign that they had indeed reviewed the footage. "We've had a heartfelt conversation with the crew. What transpired is in stark contrast to our core beliefs." Then he pointed out that our values must be more clearly defined because your crew didn't merely act on impulse. They acted based on what they believed was acceptable. That's the true issue at hand. A heavy silence filled the room. Then another voice broke through the tension, asking, "What would you change if you were in our shoes?" He took a moment, not just a fleeting thought, but a profound reflection, knowing that if this was more than just a surface-level apology, it needed to be accompanied by genuine, impactful actions. Begin with training, he urged, not. It's about diving deep into the heart of true education. We need to invite those who can recognize the subtlety of bias the way it lurks beneath the surface of protocols and policies. They listened intently. We must establish a genuine process for accountability, he continued. When someone crosses a boundary, don't wait for the world to notice before you take it to heart. He leaned in closer. And don't make passengers prove they belong. That's not their job. It's your responsibility to treat them as if they do. The room was enveloped in silence, but not the kind that comes from a lack of words. This was a silence that truly heard. That taken into account. Following the meeting, he received an incredible opportunity, a consulting position that was far more than just a symbolic title. It was a heartfelt invitation to join a youth advisory panel being established by the airline's diversity division, a chance to make a real impact. He mentioned he would ponder over it not out of disinterest, but because he deeply wanted to ensure it wasn't merely a tick on someone's PR checklist. For him to truly embrace change, it had to be genuine and profound. Returning to school, I could feel that everything had changed once more. A passionate group of students embarked on a heartfelt initiative aimed at addressing bias in public spaces, striving to ensure that every voice is heard without the need to shout. They extended a heartfelt invitation for him to share his thoughts at their upcoming assembly. "I'm not really someone who speaks much," he confessed. Yet they reassured him, "You are not obligated to be. Please just speak from your heart." There he was standing before a sea of eager faces in a packed auditorium. With unwavering strength, his voice carried a profound simplicity in its message. At times, the path of righteousness whispers softly rather than shouts for attention. It lacks hashtags. It feels so heavy just remaining motionless when someone urges you to rise. The applause was slow to come, yet the stillness that followed his words conveyed a depth of emotion that applause could never capture. And just like that, what started as a single moment on a solitary plane blossomed into something so much greater. He was so much more than just the kid who remained still. He was the child who ignited a spark in others, prompting them to ponder the deeper reasons behind why that moment had to unfold at all. 2 weeks later, the airline unveiled a new policy update, essential training teams dedicated to addressing bias, and a groundbreaking first-class protocol that eliminated subjectivity from the boarding experience. Everything fell apart because of his shouting. Everything unfolded because he remained steadfast in his seat, resolutely holding his ground without ever wavering. Yet there lingered one final call he had yet to make. A conversation that had been longing to happen not with the media, not in a sterile boardroom, but with someone who had quietly observed everything from a distance. His father, the remarkable man who, with a single phone call, had the ability to ground a plane not out of anger, but through his profound reach influence and the subtle strength of understanding when to intervene. And now, the moment had come to finally confront that call that had been weighing on my mind. He wasn't turning away from the call. Not quite. It felt so heavy, as if the weight of the world rested on it. Despite the flood of attention, the countless articles and the endless requests for interviews, there remained one person whose response held more significance than any headline could convey. Since everything happened, his dad had fallen into a deep silence. Not quiet, but intentional. The silence that envelops you, whispering, "I'm here observing from a distance, allowing you your space." That call had brought the plane safely to the ground. Everything came to a sudden halt in just a few minutes. Yet in the end, no one truly understood the words that had been exchanged. Neither the passengers nor the crew, and certainly not the airline itself, are to blame. It was kept hidden from the world. It was genuine, not just for show. It was a force wielded with the utmost precision and care. And that power carried a heavy burden. When the teen finally reached out, it wasn't to express gratitude for his support. It was meant to be a heartfelt conversation to truly connect and share our thoughts. His dad picked up on the second ring, a familiar sound that brought a rush of warmth and comfort. I couldn't help but wonder when you would reach out to me. He paused for a moment, his voice filled with contemplation, and said, "I've been thinking. Absolutely. I feel the same way." There was a moment of silence, but it felt comfortable and natural. He pressed on, unwavering. "I believe in your strength to manage it. I can't help but wonder why you chose to do it that way." His dad took his time with the answer. There's a profound distinction between merely creating noise and truly making a meaningful impact. You had already taken that important first step. I ensured that the second part unfolded just as it should have too. I had no idea you were there observing me all along. I'm constantly keeping an eye on everything. I only leap into action when absolutely necessary. But when that flight attendant laid her hands on you and ordered you to get up as if you were an outsider, it was so much more than just a moment about you. It's heartbreaking how people perceive children like you, particularly when you're composed and in the right, yet still face unjust treatment as if you're in the wrong. He allowed that to truly resonate within him. You had every right to be there, and I had every reason to make that call to ensure they truly grasped the gravity of the situation they were facing. But who were they truly facing? The young person inquired. His dad let out a soft, warm chuckle. A person you definitely don't want to anger. It was never about arrogance. It was a moment that would be etched in time. His father had dedicated his life to cultivating influence. It's not the kind of power that dazzles on screens, but rather the quiet strength that resides in advisory roles, shaping laws and guiding discussions behind closed doors. And when he reached out to that airline, he didn't resort to threats of lawsuits. He chose not to mention any names. He presented the facts with a calm yet unwavering conviction, leaving no space for disagreement. "My son sacrificed for that seat. You let him go because your team was driven by prejudice, not by the rules. You've made a grave mistake by grounding the wrong plane. If you don't want this story to be shared by someone with a much louder voice, you need to find the courage to admit it openly." The airline acted swiftly, grounding the flight, pulling the crew, and initiating an internal review even before the teen had a chance to return to the terminal. Yet the teenager felt more than just gratitude. He was filled with a deep sense of curiosity. Did you ever imagine it would reach this point? His dad let out a heavy sigh. I always believed it could. Yet, deep down, I understood that this was never truly about me. That's the reason I took a step back. You never required me to voice your thoughts. All you ever wanted was a space where your voice could truly resonate. And then, in a softer whisper, your performance surpassed anything I could have imagined. That moment hit with a weight I never saw coming. His dad, embodying strength and resilience, gazed at him not as a vulnerable child in need of shelter, but as a young man who had gracefully transformed the entire dialogue with his unwavering patience, dignified composure, and profound presence. With calm strength, you held your ground, never raising your voice or striking back, just embodying your truth, his dad remarked. And at times, that's what shatters the system the deepest. They shared a heartfelt conversation for a while after that. It was a reflection on everything that lay ahead. Not only for the airline or the shifts in policy, but for him personally, his journey, his decisions, and the way he yearned to embrace this moment without letting it overwhelm him. Now people were eagerly inviting him to share his voice on panels. Schools were reaching out to him, eager for him to guide and inspire the younger students. At 43 minutes and 50 seconds, the journalists were eager for those exclusive follow-ups that would truly make their story shine. Some companies reached out with offers of sponsorships or internships, yet he found himself questioning what was truly sincere and what was merely a fleeting response to the whirlwind of viral fame. "I just can't bear the thought of becoming a brand," he confided to his dad. "Then just don't," he replied with a quiet intensity. "Be a voice. Speak when your heart has something to share, not when others anticipate your words. That resonated deeply within him. In the days that followed, the airline unveiled a heartfelt new campaign, humble and sincere, prioritizing responsibility over self-praise. They began to share their internal reports detailing the number of passenger complaints by category and even launched a submission portal for anonymous feedback. Yet despite these efforts being a clear reaction to the events that unfolded, he remained unacknowledged in the process. No flashy photo opportunities, no empty public relations gimmicks, just genuine policy that is clear and accountable. In the meantime, he returned to class, to homework, to the rhythm of everyday life that now resonated with a quiet reminder of all he had endured. There were days when it felt almost like a dream. Some days the weight felt unbearable, as it's an odd burden to bear being viewed as a symbol when you never wished for such a role. One quiet evening, as he sat alone in his room, lost in the endless scroll of news articles, a headline from a small local paper in a distant state suddenly caught his eye. A teenager unjustly taken from their first-class seat sparks a heartfelt change in policy at a local airline. Though it was a small story that didn't capture widespread attention, the airline recognized his situation as a pivotal moment, prompting them to re-evaluate their training procedures. In that moment, a profound realization washed over him. This experience transcended a single airline, or even a solitary flight. This was all about the ripple effect. One simple act of dignity, just sitting there, steadfast and unyielding, had reached depths he never thought possible. Yet the tale was far from finished. Not just yet. Yet there lingered a sense of longing for the voice of one more person he had yet to hear from. The caring flight attendant, the woman who ignited everything with a single assumption, a bold command, and a momentous choice that could never be undone. In this moment, it was her who took the brave step to reach out. The message arrived softly, slipping in unnoticed away from the noise of social media and the bustle of public channels. It was an email that landed in his school account, forwarded by an uncertain administrator grappling with how to handle it. Subject line, "I have something important to share." He felt a deep, instinctive recognition before he even dared to open it. Her name lingered in the air. There's no shield of legal jargon, no facades, only her raw, unfiltered voice shining through and straightforward. He paused before reading it, not from fear, but due to the weight of all that moment held within it, the piercing pain of being humiliated before a crowd of unfamiliar faces on a plane. The haunting resonance of murmurs, the heavy silence that followed the painful words, echoing the truth that he didn't belong. Yet he couldn't resist and clicked. "I'm not sure if my words will find their way to you. I find myself questioning whether I truly deserve it at all. I'm reaching out because there's something I owe you, something I failed to share with you during that flight. The undeniable truth." Every word was selected with utmost care. She had taken her time to write them, pouring her heart into every word. She confessed to her mistake not with the guarded language of legalities, but with a raw honesty that is incredibly difficult for someone who has long been shielded by the comforts of structure and seniority. "When I caught sight of you sitting there, a wave of uncertainty washed over me, and I couldn't help but think that perhaps you didn't belong in that moment. It was never about what you wore, where you sat, or how you spoke. It was me, my own prejudice, my own shortcomings that led to this moment." He pored over the sentence, reading it 3 times each pass, deepening his connection to the words. There was simply no justification to be found. There is no excuse disguised as an apology. "For more than 16 years, I've poured my heart and soul into this job. I've navigated every path, faced every challenge that has come my way. I truly believed I was being just. I believed I had the insight to truly understand people, but I was mistaken. You demonstrated to me that it's possible to stand your ground with grace without ever needing to raise your voice or push back, unlike how I might have reacted if the roles were switched." She shared the profound impact the aftermath had on her life, revealing how the airline had taken her off active duty during the investigation. She opened up about her journey into therapy and her decision to finally enroll in courses she had long neglected, a step towards healing and growth. Not because the airline insisted, but because, as she expressed, my actions were not merely wrong. They were deeply hurtful. It felt so sluggish and unmotivated. Indolent thoughts can bring about suffering. She never sought forgiveness. She never sought an answer. All she ever wanted was just one thing. 49 minutes, 9 seconds. It didn't bring the closure I longed for. Not in the way I had hoped, but it was undeniably human. She had shattered something precious, and now she was quietly grappling with the weight of her responsibility. He wrestled with his thoughts for hours, pouring his heart into countless drafts only to erase them in frustration. But when he finally mustered the courage to respond, his message was painfully brief. Your voice reached me, and I truly wish that others can hear it as well. He failed to provide the solace I desperately needed. He didn't cushion the blow, but he allowed her words to resonate, honoring the very thing he had yearned for from the start. It's not about punishment or creating a spectacle. It's about the profound need to be recognized and embraced as a whole person. That one moment didn't wipe away the past, but it changed the very atmosphere surrounding it. When accountability arises naturally, it holds a profound significance that mere statements and press releases can never truly convey. In the weeks that followed, everything shifted. It wasn't only about the airline's actions, it was also about the way schools' news outlets and even strangers engaged with him. The story had transformed. It was no longer solely about the injustice that plagued it. It was a profound reflection on the strength found in tranquility, the way composure can resonate more deeply than anger, and how unwavering dignity has the power to transform systems without destruction. One beautiful morning, he received an invitation to share his thoughts at a student leadership forum. He came so close to saying no. It wasn't that he didn't want to. It was that he couldn't bear the thought of turning into that kid from the plane. Yet deep within him, a profound change had taken place. Not in pursuit of fame nor seeking attention, but simply yearning for clarity. As he stood at the podium, his words danced around the topic of the flight, never quite touching it directly. He began with a tale that was unlike any other. Many believe that true power lies in the words you choose to express. I've come to realize that it's just as much about the words left unspoken. When you choose to remain calm, to stand strong, and to break free from the confines they impose, that's when your presence becomes impossible to overlook. Silence enveloped the room as an unspoken understanding settled among them all. In silence, they understood. He was pouring out a piece of his soul. He was guiding them in the beautiful art of crafting their own words. As he finally stepped off the stage, a teacher came up to him, their presence filled with anticipation, an elderly gentleman with silver strands of hair in a gentle, soothing voice. He revealed with a heavy heart that he was on that flight. The teenager blinked, a moment of surprise flickering across their eyes. Were you really? I witnessed every moment unfold. I longed to find my voice, but in that moment, I felt paralyzed. It has consumed my thoughts every single day since that moment. I need you to understand the impact of your actions. It truly mattered. It struck him with an intensity he never saw coming, not merely for the praise it brought, but for the undeniable proof it represented, evidence that silence creates its own waves resonating through the depths of our souls. Yet not every kind is one that overwhelms. There are moments when it simply lingers, absorbing every sound, every lesson, with a quiet patience. And when it finally gathers the strength to voice its thoughts, it does so with a clarity that resonates deeply, reaching far beyond that initial drop. And that echo continued to resonate through the air. Then, out of the blue, an unexpected call arrived, not from a reporter, not from the airline, but from the Department of Transportation. They longed to meet. The phone call was brief, devoid of any grand gestures or media hype. It was simply a steady professional voice reaching out to see if he would be willing to engage in a conversation with representatives from the Department of Transportation Civil Rights Division. In that moment, It didn't fully register the magnitude of what was happening, until his mom leaned over the counter phone, still clutched in her hand, and softly said, "They don't reach out unless they're truly paying attention." And they were in ways that stirred something deep within him. As he approached the federal building, he entered quietly, not as if he was seeking the spotlight. He entered with a confidence that radiated, as if he carried the weight of purpose in every step. This isn't about seeking attention or settling scores. It's just a heartfelt inquiry. What can we do to ensure that this never happens again? They truly listened each and every word. Silence enveloped the room as he shared the timeline of that day, each word hanging in the air unchallenged and profound. The way they scrutinized his boarding pass felt so unsettling. It was as if the flight attendant hadn't merely requested him to change his seat. She had made the painful assumption that he had somehow erred. It was heartbreaking to see how his serene reaction had been distorted into something so untrustworthy. It felt as though time itself had come to a standstill, with every gaze in the cabin fixed upon him, making him feel like the source of chaos rather than the one caught in its grip. It had transformed into something far greater than that single flight. He shared his feelings about stepping into certain spaces and experiencing the painful reality of being treated like an unwelcome intruder. The heavy burden of constantly needing to demonstrate your place in the world. The way young people like him were gently molded over the years to speak a bit softer, to move a touch slower, all to avoid being seen as a threat. As he concluded, a representative found the courage to voice their thoughts. "Your situation resonates deeply with us, and it's truly remarkable how you've navigated it with such clarity and grace. The majority culminate in turmoil. This has become something completely different from what it once was." They reached out to him not seeking a flashy campaign or a hollow public apology from the airline, but rather a heartfelt plea for his expertise in crafting a meaningful protocol. A genuine, tangible set of training tools for the staff that could truly make a difference. A commitment that transcended mere sensitivity and truly embraced the essence of accountability. A program that not only educated flight attendants and crew members to identify bias, but compelled them to confront the very systems that perpetuate it. He wholeheartedly agreed. It wasn't a snap decision. It came after a deep reflection. He knew that if his story was to be shared, it had to be him who told it on his own terms and in his own voice. For the following weeks, he poured his heart and soul into a small task force united in purpose and determination. Genuine experts, passionate civil rights advocates, dedicated airline representatives, committed transportation officials, and even a handful of retired flight attendants who have bravely faced their own experiences of discrimination throughout the years. Hand in hand, they created something truly unique. A training module that began with his story, not to evoke guilt, but to touch the heart. It began with the raw truth facts, haunting footage, heartfelt testimonies, a deep dive into the subtle ways bias can whisper rather than shout. Sometimes it arrives dressed in a uniform accompanied by a courteous smile, and then it revealed the powerful consequences that unfold when someone stands tall and refuses to diminish in the face of adversity. The training received the green light for testing across 5 major US airlines. The airline involved in his unfortunate incident. They chose to embrace it willingly, not out of fear of legal repercussions, but because the turmoil they had endured was far more profound than mere damage control. It had revealed their hidden flaws, and at last they had ceased to deny their existence. Returning home, everything began to progress. School, the bonds of friendship, and the applications for programs he once believed were beyond his grasp. Yet there was a profound change in the way people communicated with him. He had transformed from just the kid on the plane into something so much more. He was the one who took the brave step to ground the flight, and then poured his heart into building the runway that followed. Naturally, there were critics, individuals online, who insisted he should have just moved on. He expressed how fortunate he felt just to be in first class at all. He remained silent, leaving them in the heavy weight of unanswered questions. He no longer needed to, for every time he boarded a plane now, Regardless of the airline or the destination, he felt an undeniable shift within him. It wasn't that the world had suddenly transformed, but rather that the next child stepping into first class would no longer face scrutiny before they even settled in. And if they truly were, there would be a heartfelt process, a compassionate protocol, a meaningful system in place. It was the bravery of a solitary, quiet teenager who chose to remain seated in the right spot, allowing the entire nation to rise and truly hear what needed to be said. It all reached a boiling point one fateful day at a panel he had been honored to be invited to. Visionaries of civil rights leaders in transportation, airline executives, and even the esteemed Secretary of Transportation himself. As the closing remarks unfolded, they turned to him with anticipation, inquiring if he had any final thoughts to share. He gazed across the dimly lit room, his heart-racing eyes fixed ahead, feeling the weight of everyone's anticipation. And then he expressed, "The aim was never to become a symbol. It was simply to be treated with the same dignity as everyone else. If your system only caters to the loudest, the wealthiest, or those who already fit in, then what you have isn't a system. It's merely a reflection of privilege. It's time to transform that reflection." The applause began softly, then swelled into a powerful roar, culminating in a standing ovation. Not for the sake of theatrics, but for the pursuit of genuine truth. A truth so profound, it resonates quietly yet powerfully within us all. In the shadows of the back row, a familiar face lingered silently observing with a sense of nostalgia. It was her stripped of the uniform, without the badge of authority, just a person still on her journey of learning. And that, above all else, showed that the journey was truly making a difference. Change begins from within, not from a set of rules. It begins when individuals finally confront the reality of what has been shattered. The months that came after were not marked by sensational headlines, nor by urgent news segments, nor by viral clips flooding social media. Yet they were profoundly filled with transformation. Gradual yet profound transformation unfolds over time. Across airports in the country, a beautiful symphony of conversations began to fill the air, breaking the silence that once lingered in those spaces. The gate agents hesitated, their hearts heavy, before confronting a seat assignment. Flight crews began to awaken to the unexamined beliefs they had been operating under without thought. While travelers, particularly those who had never faced scrutiny regarding their place, were finally beginning to recognize the unseen barriers that had been established around them. He never sought the limelight, despite its relentless pursuit of him. With interviews, panels, and college invitations pouring in, people praised him as brave, brilliant, even heroic. Yet he remained grounded and kept it simple. "I simply spoke the truth," he would insist, "and I remained steadfast." He completed high school with a sense of quiet determination, right on schedule, his grades reflecting his hard work and dedication. A few teachers watched with a quiet sense of pride as he walked across the stage to receive his diploma, fully aware that in just 1 year he had left a deeper mark than many do in a lifetime. At 1008, a scholarship offer from college arrived, bringing with it a wave of hope and excitement. It wasn't just his story that moved me, but the profound way he bore it with such grace. Like a burden he never wielded to harm others, but rather to elevate what had been shattered, he selected a university that embraced his experience without demanding he recount the painful details repeatedly. Instead, they focused on understanding how to grow from it, seeking ways to empower other young individuals to lead with a serene and resilient spirit. Yet there was still so much left for him to accomplish. By the time he reached the age of 20, he had passionately contributed to the creation of a series of nationwide guidelines that were embraced by numerous airline associations. These were not merely guidelines to prevent discrimination. These were crucial policies that compelled airlines to monitor complaints based on race, age, and status, urging them to confront and investigate patterns that could no longer be overlooked. In that very moment, he also took a heartfelt step to co-found a mentorship program dedicated to empowering teens of color who dreamt of soaring into the aviation industry, not merely as passengers, but as pilots. engineers, policy advisors, and even flight attendants, each playing a vital role in the journey. He urged them not to simply step onto the plane. Embrace the thrill of being the one in control, soaring through the skies. Take the reins and create it yourself. Take the bold step to rewrite the manual yourself. And they truly did. His story had transcended mere controversy, becoming a profound narrative that resonated deeply within us all. It ignited a flame, a radiant spark that illuminated classrooms, boardrooms, and flight decks alike. Many years later, on a serene afternoon, he found himself holding a letter in his hands. Not a mere email, not a simple DM, but a heartfelt, handwritten letter. It came from a young boy who had been silently witnessing his story unfold from a distance, filled with a mix of wonder and longing. A person who had once found himself in an airport, taken aside, and interrogated for seeming suspicious simply because he was joyfully playing music on his phone and laughing a little too loudly. He penned, "I used to dread flying not due to the plane itself, but from the fear of what could happen to me while I was on it. Then I discovered your story. And now I understand that if they ever attempt to shift me from my seat, I don't need to raise my voice. I simply need to remain calm. I just need to feel that I truly belong there." He carefully folded the letter and placed it gently in the back of a journal he had begun to keep. This isn't about chronicling pain. It's about celebrating growth. The journal has grown thick, not with sorrow, but with triumphs. They may not all be monumental. Some are as subtle as a flight attendant pausing to reconsider a quick judgment. Others carry the weight of significance, like a family stepping into first class embraced without hesitation. And then there are the monumental achievements, like airlines proudly sharing their progress year after year. It wasn't about seeking public admiration. It was about understanding the journey ahead. He had intertwined his fate with something irreversible. One simple choice, remaining in his seat, had not only halted a plane, but had also brought an entire industry, one that frequently soared beyond accountability, back to earth. By choosing to stand firm, he compelled the system to shift not through rage, but through unwavering truth. Years later, as he sat in a serene airport, headphones enveloping him in a world of his own, his backpack resting at his feet, and a first-class ticket clutched in his hand, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. No eyes lingered on him. No hushed conversations followed him, and no one scrutinized his pass. When the gate finally opened, he stepped forward just like everyone else. It wasn't about being extraordinary. It was about reclaiming a seat that had always belonged to him. At long last, the world had finally embraced that moment. The story of a black teenager who was asked to leave first class shows the power of determination and dignity in the face of injustice. The key lesson is that standing up calmly but firmly for your rights can create profound change, not only for yourself, but for your community. The boy's courage, combined with his father's support, forced an entire airline to review its policies and training promoting fairness and accountability. In today's American society, where issues of racism and inequality persist, this story is a reminder that every individual has the power to make a difference. From movements like Black Lives Matter to efforts to reform industries, the persistence of speaking out against prejudice is important. The teenager's actions reflect the spirit of a generation of young Americans who use social media and solidarity to amplify their voices. Learn to stand up to injustice without making too much noise and still be respectful. When you witness or experience injustice at work, school, or in your community, find ways to respond constructively using channels like dialogue reporting or connecting with influencers. At the same time, support and elevate the voices of those who are underrepresented, contributing to building a more just society.